Nobody dared bid for the wild alien girl until this human bid on her. The air on Varath Prime always tasted faintly of rust and smoke, the kind of place where people traded lives like playing cards. In the underbelly of Dock Quarter 7, the auction hall pulsed with muffled voices, the scent of oil burners and adrenaline mixing in the stale air. Thick iron shadows clung to the walls, broken only by the shifting glow of neon price boards. Kalen Wren leaned against a cracked pillar, keeping his hood low, watching the stage through a crowd of smugglers, mercenaries, and buyers, who all wore the same look, greed in their eyes, credits in their hands. One by one, the handlers dragged in their prizes: a lizard-faced tracker from the eastern moons, a cybernetically enhanced gladiator, a pair of desert-bred telepaths who refused to look anyone in the eye. Bids rose and fell in harsh bursts of sound. Then the room changed. A pair of armored guards stepped onto the stage, magnetic rifles slung at this ready. Between them walked a girl. No, not just a girl. Something else. Something older. She was tall, lean, every muscle drawn tight as if every step were a battle she refused to lose. A black collar ringed her throat, linked by glowing chains to her wrists. The restraints hummed with containment fields strong enough to hold a star beast. But her gaze made it seem like the chains were for the audience's comfort, not hers. Her eyes, they were not one color. They shifted like stormlight gold in the center, deepening to violet at the edges. Wild, untamed, alive. The crowd's noise faltered, as if a silent pressure had dropped over the hall. Someone muttered near Kalen's ear. "That's her, the Varath Wraith. Last owner found dead in his sleep. No mark on him." The auctioneer's voice cut through the murmurs, smooth as oil. "Lot 47, species classified. Behavioral profile dangerous, starting bid, 200,000 credits." No one moved. The handlers shifted uneasily, glancing at one another. The girl just stood there, eyes sweeping the room like she was counting every heartbeat. The silence stretched until it became a challenge. The auctioneer tried again, dropping the starting price. Still nothing. That was when Kalen raised his hand. It was a small motion, but it was as if he had fired a weapon. Heads turned. The auctioneer blinked. Bid registered. 200,000 from the human in the back. A scar-faced buyer leaned close to him, voice low. "You won't survive the night if you keep that hand up." Kalen didn't lower it. For the first time, the girl's gaze locked on him. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even curiosity. It was recognition, the quiet, dangerous kind. Like someone who's been waiting for you far longer than you've been alive. And in that moment, Kalen knew two things. One, every person in this room would kill him for her. Two, he was still not going to lower his hand. The transfer papers were just a formality, forged ident codes, smuggler signatures, a few silent exchanges that made sure no security cam ever registered her face. By the time Kalen led her through the service hatch to Dock 7, the bidding crowd had already scattered like smoke in the wind. She walked ahead of him without being told, her chained wrists held just loose enough to suggest she could have broken free at any time. The metallic hum of the restraints pulsed faintly through the air. Kalen couldn't tell if it was the chains vibrating or his own pulse. His freighter. The Ravel waited in the shadow of a half-dead docking bay light. The ship was ugly, patched with metal from 5 different systems. But it was home. As the boarding ramp hissed down, Kalen keyed in the override to his ship's AI. "Keep this compartment on blackout. No logs, no transmissions," he muttered. "Noted," came the AI's voice, calm, faintly accented, like an old teacher. "Shall I inquire as to the nature of our guest?" Kalen glanced at her. She had stopped just inside the hatch, scanning the freighter's interior with eyes that moved too quickly, cataloging every exit, every weapon mount, every possible threat. "No," he told the AI. "Not yet." Inside, he released the locks on her restraints. The chains fell away with a hiss, retracting into the cuffs, which he left lying on the floor. For a moment, she didn't move, her hands still positioned, as if the bindings were there. Then slowly she lowered them, flexing her fingers. "What do I call you?" Kaylin asked. No answer. "I can't keep saying hey you every time I want you to stop messing with the systems." Her gaze flicked toward him, unreadable. "Names are for people who belong somewhere." "Right, so what should I call you?" She hesitated, the kind of pause that felt heavier than silence. "Call me nothing." It wasn't a refusal in anger. It was something colder. A wall, carefully built. The Ravel rumbled free of Varath Prime's dock, slipping into the silent drift of space. The AI ran through departure protocols, then said, "Captain, there's an anomaly in neural scan logs from boarding." Kaylin frowned. "I didn't authorize a scan." "It's automatic when new biosigns are detected. Your guest's neural pattern registered a resonance spike when within 3 meters of you." He glanced toward the girl. She was seated in the co-pilot's chair now, one leg drawn up, eyes fixed on the stars outside. "Define resonance," Kaylin said. "A near-perfect synaptic harmonic, only possible when two nervous systems are genetically compatible for deep pair bonding." The AI paused. "That's impossible between human and her species. Cross-index shows no recorded case." Kaylin's stomach tightened. "Could be faulty readings. Readings repeated 4 times. No fault detected." He didn't reply. When the ship settled into autopilot, Kaylin found her in the galley, drinking water like someone who'd gone too long without trusting the taste of it. "You know what the AI found?" he asked. Her eyes lifted slowly to his. "I know." "Then explain it." She set the glass down with precision, as if controlling even that gesture. "There's nothing to explain. Some things exist whether they should or not. That resonance means you'll never look at me the same way you look at anyone else," she finished quietly. "It means your instincts will bend toward me, whether you want them to or not." Kaylin stared at her, trying to read past the calm mask she wore. "And what happens if I don't want it?" "Then you should let me go before we reach the next port," she said. "Because if you don't, you'll never let me go at all." There was no threat in her tone, just fact. Later in the crew quarters, Kaylin sat alone, pulling up old encrypted archives. He searched for anything matching neural resonance anomaly, but most files were locked under decommissioned military clearance. A few fragments surfaced, classified projects from the last century, whispers of cross-species bond engineering. War-born partners. Soldiers who never retreated because their hearts were chained to the one they fought beside. The galaxy had burned that research in a purge called the Program Erasure. Supposedly, no survivors remained. And yet she was sitting in his ship. The AI broke his thoughts. "Captain, long-range sensors detect a data ping following our course. Someone's tracking us." Kaylin rose immediately. "Lock it out. Mask our trail." "Already attempting, but..." The AI hesitated, something it never did. "The ping originates from a very old military channel, matching the frequency embedded in your guest's DNA tag." Kaylin's eyes narrowed. "She's tagged?" "Yes, and whoever's listening just got her location." He found her in the cargo hold, crouched beside a storage crate, idly tracing a pattern in the dust with one fingertip, a looping symbol like 2 spirals crossing. "They're tracking you," he said. "I know," she replied without looking up. "You could have told me." "I could have. You still would have brought me aboard. Don't assume you know me." She looked up at him then, and for a heartbeat, something unguarded flickered in her eyes. "I don't have to. The bond tells me everything I need." Kaylin took a step closer. "Then tell me why you were on that auction block." The faintest shadow of a smile touched her lips. "Because the galaxy thought my kind was dead, and for their comfort, they still believe it." In the quiet between their words, the Ravel drifted on, engines whispering against the dark. Somewhere far ahead, another port awaited. Somewhere far behind, Varath Prime's auction hall would already be buzzing with rumors about the human who wouldn't lower his hand. Kaylin couldn't shake the feeling that, whatever she was, whoever was coming for her, it was already too late to turn back. The Ravel drifted in the shadow of a silent asteroid field, its hull panels shuddering as Kalen worked on the starboard coolant manifold. The ship had taken a beating from its last atmospheric burn, and if he didn't fix the leak soon, the hyperdrive would cook itself before they reached the next port. The girl, still nameless, was sitting cross-legged on a crate near the bulkhead, watching him work. She hadn't asked questions, hadn't offered to help, but her eyes never stopped tracking him. "You could at least pretend you're not studying me like a threat," Kalen said, elbow deep in coolant pipes. "I don't study threats," she replied. "I survive them." Before he could respond, the ship's AI cut in sharply. "Lechul, Captain, unidentified vessel inbound, closing fast, no transponder, weapons charged." Kalen's head snapped up. "How close?" 2,000 clicks and closing. They were already on vector before we picked them up, likely masked by the asteroid belt. His gaze flicked to the girl. She was already standing, shoulders squared. "They're not here for you," Kalen lied. She tilted her head, unblinking. "Yes, they are." The impact came seconds later, a shuddering thud that rattled the hull, followed by the groan of docking clamps locking in place. Warning lights bled crimson across the hold. Kalen grabbed his sidearm and shoved the girl toward the engine room. "Stay there. Seal the door, and don't—" The hatch to the starboard corridor blew inward with a burst of sparks. Figures poured through mercenaries in patched armor, visors reflecting the hold's emergency lights. Kalen fired first, dropping one, then ducked behind the coolant manifold as plasma bolts tore into the walls. One mercenary flanked him, blade drawn. Kalen swung his pistol up too slow. The mercenary lunged, and then she was there. The girl moved in a blur, faster than his eyes could track. One hand caught the attacker's wrist mid-strike. The other drove upward into his chest with a sound like shattering bone. She pivoted, spinning him into another merc, dropping them both in a heap. Her movements weren't wild. They were precise every step. Every strike had the economy of a soldier who'd fought 100 times before. The fight lasted less than a minute. The surviving mercs broke off, retreating toward their ship, dragging their wounded. As the docking clamps released, the girl swayed, her breath sharp, uneven. "Hey!" Kalen stepped toward her, but her knees buckled. He caught her before she hit the deck. Her skin was cold, her pulse erratic. The AI's voice came over the comms. "Captain, she's in neurological shock." "You need to bring her to medbay now." In the sterile light of the medbay, the AI's diagnostic drones swarmed over her. Holoscreens flickered with streams of data Kalen only half understood. "Explain," he demanded. The AI's tone was clinical. "Her genome contains memory-encoded DNA embedded within our preloaded combat sequences, reflexes, tactics, kill patterns. It's the product of advanced military biogenetics. Her mind doesn't need to learn to fight. Her body already remembers." Kalen's jaw tightened. "From when?" "Records match gene war coding from the Varian conflict. That war ended 50 years ago." "That's impossible." "She'd have to be designed," the AI finished. She stirred, eyes opening slowly. "How many?" Kalen blinked. "How many what?" She looked past him to the medbay door, as if seeing through it. "Mercenaries. How many got away?" "3. You killed 2. She closed her eyes again, and for the first time, Kalen thought he saw something like shame flicker across her face. "That thing you did out there," he said quietly. "That wasn't instinct. That was training." "It's not mine," she whispered. "It's in my blood. I can't turn it off." Kalen leaned on the edge of the medbay table, searching her face. Then what happens if it is turned on? Her eyes opened, and for a moment he swore he saw that storm light shift inside them again. Gold bleeding into violet. If it's fully activated, she said, voice barely more than breath, I won't stop until everyone is dead, including you. The words hung between them, cold and final, as the Revel drifted deeper into the black. The abandoned mining station floated like a hollowed carcass in the dark, its skeletal docking arms stretched toward Kalen's freighter, as if begging to be remembered. Rusted plating and shattered viewports told the story of a place that had been stripped and left to die decades ago. Perfect for hiding. The Revel eased into the docking cradle with a soft shudder. Power lines snaked out, coupling to the hull, and the AI reported in a low voice. No active energy signatures. Station is dormant. You're alone here. For now. Kalen didn't like the pause at the end. They powered down the engines, locking the ship into blackout mode. The girl had said nothing since the fight with the mercenaries. She moved through the ship like smoke, silent and watchful, as though every shadow in the station's docking bay was something she expected to move. That night, if you could call it that, in a place where the only light came from distant stars, Kalen found her in the crew lounge. She sat on the floor in the corner, knees drawn up, head tilted against the wall. Eyes open. Always open. You're not sleeping, he said. Sleep isn't safe here, she murmured. We're in blackout. No one can find us. Her gaze shifted to him, a slow, deliberate motion. That's what you think. Kalen crossed the room and sat opposite her, back against the wall. Then tell me, what are you seeing when you close your eyes? She hesitated. When she spoke, her voice was softer than he'd ever heard it. Not mercenaries, not bounty hunters, my own kind. You mean the ones who made you? They're not people. Not anymore. They call themselves the hunters. They were created alongside me, perfected to track us down if we ever went astray. If they find me, they'll use the bond to make me obey, to make you obey, through me. Kalen's jaw tightened. That's not going to happen. You can't stop it, she said quietly. For a while they sat in silence, the hum of the station's ancient metal settling around them. Kalen stood and began pulling gear from a wall compartment. Weapons, shield projectors, spare energy cells. She watched him work. You're preparing for a fight you can't win. You've never seen me lose, he said without looking at her. She tilted her head, studying him with something almost like sorrow. I've seen the end of every fight before it starts. That's part of what they made me for. Kalen loaded the last power cell and finally met her eyes. Then tell me this. How do I make sure they never take you? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached for the sleeve of his jacket, fingers brushing the fabric, a rare break in her guarded distance. You can't, because the bond between us, it's irreversible now. What does that mean? Her hand dropped back to her side. It means your safety is tied to mine. If they kill me, you die. If they control me, they control you. We're already one target. For a moment, neither of them moved. Outside the viewport, the asteroid belt drifted silently past, carrying shadows across the hull. Kalen had seen battlefields where the air was thick with fear and death, but this was different. This was a war creeping in through the quiet. She turned her face away, her voice low. You should have let me go when you had the chance. Kalen's reply was almost a whisper. Not a chance. The first sign wasn't a sensor ping. It was the silence. The mining station's groaning hull had been singing for hours, the deep, aching resonance of old steel cooling in the dark. But now the sound was gone, swallowed by the void. Even the ventilation hum seemed to hesitate. Kalen's eyes flicked to the nav display. A shadow moved against the drifting asteroid belt. No transponder, no lights. Just a shape, sleek, predatory, sliding toward them like a shark through black water. She was already watching it from the corner of the cockpit, her shoulders tensed, every muscle wired with some primal recognition. They found us, she whispered. Before he could speak, the comm crackled to life, a voice like stone dragged over metal. Human freighter, power down and prepare for boarding. Your passenger belongs to us. Kalen reached for the throttle. They're going to have to try harder than... Kalen, her voice cut him short, low and urgent. You don't fight the breaker. The name landed with weight. Even without knowing who or what the breaker was, the words scraped along Kalen's instincts like cold iron. The enemy ship slipped into range, a silent leviathan eclipsing the stars. Moments later, the freighter's systems flickered shields, weapons, even the reactor core strangled by an invasive signal worm. Every warning panel lit red. They've overridden our power grid. Kalen slammed his fist against the console, but the ship was dead in the water. The comm opened again. You can live, human. Hand her over. He didn't answer. That silence was answer enough. A metallic thud echoed through the hull, magnetic clamps biting into the freighter's spine. Then the hiss of a boarding umbilical locking into place. The ship shuddered as something massive moved inside. She stood slowly, eyes fixed on the corridor, breathing shallow. Then, without warning, she ran. Wait! Kalen chased her through the narrow passageways, but she was faster, driven by something more than fear. She reached the airlock and slammed the control panel. The inner door sealed, isolating her in the chamber. Her palm hovered over the manual eject. What are you doing? Kalen shouted through the glass. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were breaking. If they take me, they'll use me against you. You'll follow them, fight for them, die for them. I won't let it happen. You think I'll just watch you? The corridor lights dimmed as footsteps approached. Heavy, deliberate. Then he appeared. Tall, armored in bone-black plating etched with kill marks. Helmet crowned with the curved tusks of some ancient predator. The air seemed to thin around him. Hello, little one, the breaker said. Kalen froze. Little one. But she stopped breathing. The faint glow in her eyes faltered, replaced by something Kalen had never seen in her. Not fear, not rage, but recognition. And the breaker said a name Kalen had never heard. The moment it left his lips, she trembled as if the sound itself was a chain tightening around her throat. The boarding fight becomes a desperate ballet of survival. Kalen taking blaster fire while she moves like a streak of living shadow. When he's cornered, she tears into the hunters with lethal precision, each strike echoing centuries-old battle forms buried in her DNA. The breaker falls, but not before warning Kalen that she will one day turn that fury on him. In the quiet after, drifting among the stars and wreckage, she confesses the unthinkable. She was bred as a war bondmate, a living weapon of loyalty and love, designed to fuse herself to a human soldier's mind so deeply that he'd die before leaving her side. The project was outlawed for turning affection into a tool of war. She warns him softly, almost like a plea. If we don't separate, the bond will burn us alive. The freighter drifts at the edge of the galactic frontier, stars spilling like molten silver across the viewport. Repairs are crude, fuel reserves low. Beyond this point lies the uncharted black no law, no masters, only freedom. She stands at the docking ramp, mask gone, eyes unguarded for the first time. Her voice is steady, but her fingers tremble. If you let me go now, you can still have a life, a home. You won't spend every night looking over your shoulder. You won't die for someone who... Kalen cuts her off, not with words, but with action. He does what he did the night they first met. He raises his hand toward her and does not lower it. Then we live together, he says quietly, but there's an unshakable certainty in his voice. Something in her breaks not in pain, but release. A tear slips free, catching the starlight. She steps forward, placing her hand in his, and this time, there is no hesitation. The freighter turns from the frontier and powers up its jump drive. In the cockpit, they sit side by side. The galaxy stretching before them, countless worlds, countless dangers, countless mornings they might see together. Somewhere, hunters still plot. Somewhere, the bond still burns. But for the first time, it doesn't feel like a curse, it feels like a compass. As the stars blur into light, she whispers the name she has kept locked away all her life. "It's Arian," she says. Kaylin smiles, hands steady on the controls. "Then Arian, let's see how far we can go." And with that, they vanish into the star lanes hunted, yes, but free, and together.